Today we're going to be looking at the Virtuoso P1 deck from Virtuoso. And if you want to see deck reviews just like this before anyone else, this is the channel for you. So subscribe and ring the bell so you can get notified when new videos drop. And let's get into this one right now. The front of the tuck box is done with black, white, and 2 shades of gray. You have the V logo on the top left for Virtuoso, and the same logo on the right side done completely in black. The left side says Virtuoso in actual letters, and the back is done in the same type of design, which making it a full wraparound design. And the bottom right has the P1 for perspective 1. The bottom is just some ad copy for Virtuoso and how it was produced. The top says perspective series, and you have a printed on almost tuck seal, which actually is going to come up again later. Because although it looks like a tuck seal, it is actually what the suits are now. On the inner tuck flap, it has the V logo and says designed for cardistry. The inside it says P1 on the left tuck flap, and there's nothing on the inside. Beautifully done matte cardstock, and this time the box is not flimsy. Now that's enough for the tuck box. Let's take a look at the cards. This back design is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, seriously, man. This is just absolutely out of this world. It's taking the normal Virtuoso back design, but the top left and bottom right designs, they made it into a bordered design. So instead of it being completely borderless. So you still have the same circle back design in the center. You still have the white. And this time now it's done all black and white. So the same things you've seen in all the photos is actually how it is. There's no color to this deck, which then makes things like fanning and under pressure look absolutely gorgeous, which I'll get to in a little bit. Now before we get into how all the faces are done, let's get into the 4 ad cards. The first ad card on the face, which the backs are actually even cooler, has the same type of logo that was done for the basic tuck seal on the top, and then it says Perspective Series P1 Virtuoso and Virtuoso Card Company 2021, thevirts.com. The second one says In a New Light, inspired by the passage of a beam of light piercing the darkness and passing through a prism. The Virtuoso's P1 story begins with the Prism back design. Prism seamlessly melds the most iconic elements of the past Virtuoso decks into a new Prism 3-dimensional whole. Then, as a prism disperses light, the back's monochromatic tones split into a spectrum of color on the faces to create futuristic forms. A perspective of the past and future timelessly intertwined, the Virtuoso P1 literally takes cardistry to new dimensions. And then your last 2 on the face says, He is before all things. And the second one says, And by him all things consist. You also see a circle, more of a prism, done in the center. Now I'm not sure if that's a reference to Jesus, or if that's just because I'm, I don't know, a little bit biased, but I'm not quite sure what that means, but I do hope that that is what that means. Now when it comes to the back, you can actually lay out these 4 cards like this, and then you actually have the 4 suits. Now this piece in the center is actually going to be your pips for all 4 of the suits. So instead of having hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades, you're going to have these reds, yellows, blues, and greens. Now for the first red ace, you're going to see the pip in the center, and you're going to have a slightly simplified A value in the top left and bottom right, and you're going to have that same circle that you had on the 2 ad cards. Now when it comes to the numbers for your red cards, you're actually going to see that the same circle for all of your back design is going to be on the faces as well now. And they're all going to be done where it's all circling that same circle in the center, which is going to make spinning moves like Hot Shot and Flicker look absolutely gorgeous. Because now it's not just the back that spins, it's actually the faces as well. You're also going to see that on the 10, we have now replaced the 10 with an X for the Roman numeral. The 5s actually have a 5 on one side and a V, the Roman numeral, on the other, which is the only card that has both. The 10 has the Roman numeral, all the other numbers only have the number, and the 5s have both. And then when we get to the court cards for the reds, you actually see that you get the same circle from the ace and from the 2 ad cards on it as well. You get a second layer for the queen, and then instead of a third layer for the king, you actually get part of it taking off on the second layer, and then a top one and bottom one. Now here we go for the blues. You're going to have the same thing done in a few different shades of blue, just like we had a few different shades of red, and then everything layout wise is going to be the same. Back to yellows. This is going to be a really cool one, but for the most part it's going to be pretty much the same, although I'll still go through the entire thing with you. Now although the last ones tended to be more like arrows, these tend to be more like boxes. And then here is your ace. And then last but not least is the same thing as the yellows, but instead flipped over on its side, which then gives even more of a boxy feel for all of the court cards, your X for your 10, all the way down to your last ace. What's it look like when it fans? So when it fans the one way, It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I do still like it. I do wish that it had the color though. That's still my only thing about this deck. I wish that they would have taken it and made it like a prism, where if the back design was a prism, it would have the colors at all the sides, and they just didn't do that. And then this is what the fan looks like when fanned the other way. Now when it comes to faces, here's what that's going to look like when fanned. Again, still looks just fine. Nothing crazy. I do really like how the different pips are, and I do like how all the values are simplified. But at the same time, I don't know what to call them. Granted, it's still a cardistry deck, so you don't really have to call them anything. It's not going to be playing card games with this. But at the same time, like, everyone can know and look at a heart and be like, oh, that's a heart. Or look at a spade and go, oh, that's a spade. Now, before we get into the next thing, let's show you what it looks like when you do it under pressure. And that is probably my favorite part of this deck. So I'm going to show you the faces, and then I'm going to go back to that one, because honestly... Now again, faces don't look bad. No problem with it. They actually look best when spun, like when you move it like Hot Shot. But when you do something like this, that is just gorgeous. Ugh. That's just addicting, man. That's just a beautiful move with this deck of cards. Now, the next thing you want to know is, can this deck Pharaoh Shuffle? Because there's a lot of things you can do from a magician to a cardist, especially as a cardist. So from bottom to top, literally no problem. That thing was like butter. Now from top to bottom, I'm hoping it's as good. A lot of the times it's not for a lot of decks. And this one is just freaking fine. Literally every other. Oh, hallelujah. I'm glad they didn't mess that up. Now the next thing you'll want to know is, how thick is this deck? Like, can I compare it to the Fall Winter 17s that I have back there? Because that deck is the thinnest deck in my collection, bar none. Now, where does it compare to that? Where does it compare to everything else? What is it going to feel like when your deck shows up and go, what am I going to do? How's this deck going to feel when it hits my hands? Let me give you a quick demonstration of what it's going to feel like. I'll give you two ways of knowing. Number one, the finish. It's air cushion finish. It's going to glide like every other deck. Feels great. No problem with that. Now, how does it actually feel in your hand, right? How thick is it? And what's it feel like? So I have ways to describe both. So on a thickness scale, you have like thinner decks, you have middle of the line decks, and you have thicker decks. Now when it comes to actually printing, this is going to be important in a second, you have only two ways of printing the different paper stock. You have classic stock, and you have premium stock, which is going to be your thicker one for casino decks. Now you can also crush decks, which then takes a classic deck and goes from middle of the line to thin, or from thick to almost like a 7.5. So you have 5 and 10, then if you crush it, it goes down to 2.5 and 7.5, right? What it feels like happened with this deck is they double crushed a premium stock. Weirdest thing, haven't felt a deck like this. It feels like, if you've ever held an OPC deck, it's like they took an OPC deck and crushed it again. It's already a crushed premium stock, and then they just made it thinner. But it feels like a normal classic stock when it, like the thickness of it, like if you look at it, it looks like a thickness of a classic stock. But it feels like a crushed premium stock. So it's a super cool way that they went about this. Did not see this coming, and it honestly just feels great. Now when it comes to actually how it feels in your hand, it's going to feel more buttery. Now it still is going to have snappiness to it. So if you're going to need to do something like Hot Shot with this deck, like Bullet, like Flicker Shot, it's going to have enough pop, enough snap to where it's not going to completely warp your cards. At the same time, it's not a very thick deck, and it is going to not fit super tight in the deck unless you have all the ad cards in there. So make sure you're going to keep this in a place that's a little bit more cool, or have a card clip on the case, and don't leave this out anywhere that is humid. Now after all of this, should you buy this deck? So I think it depends on who you are. If you're a magician, I don't think you should buy this deck. If you're a cardist, 100% buy this deck. This is a no-brainer. It's Virtuoso, so it's the P1s, okay? It's the first in a series. This is a Virtuoso deck that you need to pick up, right? Virtuoso is a cardistry deck. It literally says designed for cardistry, right? It's all they're known for. This is the cardistry brand. The back design is borderless and bordered. It is black and white, so any type of clothes that you're going to have on behind it is going to look good in a cardistry video. All of the faces are completely custom. It's not only just a borderless and bordered back design, but it's also a circle back design, which means spinning things. If you throw it up and you throw it long and you throw it behind your back and you throw it from hand to hand, everything is going to look gorgeous when it's spinning, because you're going to have that constant rotation in the center of the card. And if you're doing it in the faces, it's going to do the same thing because you have the circle there as well. And you have all the new pips and indices and the colors. absolutely gorgeous. There's no reason, like, it's literally 4 different colors instead of the black and the red. Now you have black, and then you have red, and then you have the green, and you have blue, and you have yellow. Like, you have 4 different colors outside of the black, plus you have the black and the 2 shades of gray and the white. It's a cardistry deck. Buy the freaking deck. If you're a collector, 100% buy this deck. Again, it's a new part of a series. Virtuoso cards sell freakishly fast, and they end up spiking in price later. So this one isn't a low print run. There was actually a pretty large print run, especially for Virtuoso. But at the same time, Virtuoso decks take off in price. Like their V1s or V2s literally went to like $250 on eBay, the red ones. I believe those are the first ones. It's like, it's unbelievable how fast their prices just fly up. So if you're a collector and you like things that go pricey, this could be a deck for you. Now, of course, we don't know yet. But again, if you like decks in series, it's Virtuoso. They have a large series. If you like decks that look cool on a shelf, if you like cardistry decks, if you like black and white decks, all of these things are something I would say you need to put this in your collection. And second to last, should you play games with it? Heck no. There's no suits to it. It'd be stupid. And is it a hype deck? Definitely not. If you did like this review of the Virtuoso P1 deck, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you can get notified when deck reviews like this one come and drop your way. That's all I got for you today. I'll catch you guys in the next one. This is Card Perfect, signing off.